Parents, you should be investing into your child's education. You can't think critically, you'll fall for anything that people say. A lot of us do that. We just be complaining. What's the solution? So I'm diving into a book about the Black Panther Party survival programs. And while I'm not finished yet, I'm about a third of the way done with the book. I'm absolutely loving how it breaks down the programs, the core principles behind those programs. It's really detailed. It talks about how to staff the program, how much money is needed for the program, how to pay the workers, how to get the community involved. It's literally so well thought out. It's like step by step what you need to do to create these type of programs. It also speaks to the power of these programs and how it awakens people to the world around them. So, and this is all the information I got from only being a third of the way through, okay? And like I said, if you see me looking down, I have my notes here. As you can see, I got quite a few notes. So, and again, I'm not going to be going in depth into all of the chapters I read. I'm really just going to be giving like a synopsis and some of my feedback, maybe a little analysis, if you will. But I do want to touch on some of the key programs in the Black Panther Party that I have read about so far and how they were designed to address real world problems within the Black and poor communities. So let's get started with our first one. So the first chapter is the introduction to the Black Panther Survival Program. So all of the programs that the Black Panther Party were created to meet the needs of the community. Huey Newton said in his first book of essays, Die for the People, quote, "We recognize that in order to bring the people to the level of consciousness where they would seize the time, it would be necessary to serve their interests in survival by developing programs which would help them meet their daily needs." Now, this statement really resonates with me because it reminds me of kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'm going to be talking about that because that's, when I was reading this, it just kept popping out to me. And so, according to Maslow, we need to fulfill basic needs like food, water, shelter before we can reach our full potential or self-actualization. The Black Panther Party was doing just that. They provided people with the essentials so they could begin to focus on bigger problems. Huey also mentioned in that book of essays, so the survival programs are not answers or solutions, but they will help us to organize the community around a true analysis and understanding of their situation. So if people's basic needs are met, they can work on achieving goals, getting greater safety and belonging. That's up on the needs on the hierarchy scale. Safety and feeling of love and belonging. And then that also opens the door for person. The next program we're going to talk about is the Communal Youth Institute. So this was established in 1971. So the goal of the Communal Youth Institute was to provide the young with the ability and technical training that will make it possible for them to evaluate their heritage for themselves, to translate what is known into their experiences, and thus discover more readily on their own. One of the key things that this program did that I think sets itself apart from public schools back then and today is it was mandated that parents had to be engaged. I think parent engagement is literally the number one thing for school success. It's not number one, it's in conjunction with other things, but it's very important. That's what I'm trying to say. It is important. Parents, you should be investing into your child's education. I feel like nowadays parents just feel like education is just up to the teacher. Like just go to the teacher. Just the teacher should teach you everything. But hear me out. That teacher has your child for 1 year, and then they go to the next teacher and the next teacher and the next teacher. You have your child for their whole life. You should be involved. You should be involved knowing what they're learning. You should be knowing when are they taking tests, when is mandated testing coming up, when is state testing coming up, when do they have beginning of the year testing, middle of the year, like doing those check-ins, communicating with the people at your school, like it's so important. When they say it take a village, they were not lying. We have to work together to make sure that these kids are becoming critically thinking adults. Okay. The Institute also placed a strong emphasis on language arts. They offered several subjects, but their main thing with language arts was an emphasis on reading, comprehension, and retention, which ties back to those critical thinking skills. If you cannot comprehend something that you're reading in school, that means when you get out in the real world and you're faced with so many different things, you're not going to be able to comprehend. You're not going to be able to think critically past what you see on the page. And if you can't think critically, you'll fall for anything that people say. So the next program they had, this is more so something they did or they had. It was like a place. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the Son of Man Temple. So the Black Panther Party didn't necessarily follow a religion, while they did respect all religions. But the Son of Man Temple was a space where people could gather. Their belief was simple: every human has the right to be free. They used the temple and other community programs to unite people and create the means of solving the problems we face. So it was basically like a place to go where you can talk to each other about, okay, this is happening in our community. What can we do to fix it? Not just complain, because I feel like a lot of us do that. We just be complaining. What's the solution? Let's find the solutions. If I'm gonna complain, I'm gonna try to find a solution too. I'm not just gonna keep complaining. For what? Next program we're going to talk about is the Seniors Against a Fearful Environment, or SAFE program. When I was reading about this, I really liked this chapter of the book and like them explaining this, because this program was based on some hard data. Let's get into it. So senior citizens were being targeted for robbery, particularly when they were like withdrawing money on payday and like having to walk back to where they live or walk back to their car. And they tried to go to the police, and the police basically told them, we can't help you, like whatever. So these seniors, they said, you know what, we're gonna go to the Black Panther Party to see, if there's any way that they can help us. And help they did. Let's get into it. So they conducted, first a study was conducted. They conducted this study that looked at the correlation between the age of someone and then the type of crime that was committed against them. So after this 6-week study, they got their data back, and their data showed that senior citizens were more likely to be strong-armed robbery. I believe that's what they said, like strong-arm robbery, or like having their purse snatched. Senior citizens were more likely to do that. So that's how the SAFE program was born, keeping our seniors safe. I really feel like this is what police should be doing now. Like, let's collect data and let's try to prevent crimes. Let's not wait till they happen to step in. Let's try to prevent them from happening. But I'm getting off tangent. Let's get into it. So the SAFE program had several goals. Like I said, I'm not going into depth about each program. I'm just giving kind of an overview and a little bit of my own analysis of it. So one of them was to provide 24/7 transportation for our senior citizens at no to low cost. And this kind of, now tell me if this reminds you, but this kind of remind me of Metro Access today. A lot of the programs we have today were based on the things that the Black Panther Party was doing back in the 70s, but we're not gonna get into that either. Let me read a quote from this chapter. The SAFE program aims to unite Black and poor communities by actively recruiting and hiring a number of our youth to help implement these much needed services. Both driver and escorts will be recruited from among the young and the unemployed in our community, a strategy that at the same time will cut down on the number of youth who would consider snatching a purse for a little change. Now, a part of their programs was to have young people come and escort the senior citizens as they were leaving the bank getting paid, so that way it would deter people from trying to like strong arm them and rob them or snatch their purse. But I think, again, this is how law enforcement should be doing, enforcing the law. Like, we track the data to see the problem. We use the data to address the problem and then find solutions to prevent the problem from happening in the future. Boom. What was the problem? The senior citizens, and I'm gonna break it down. The senior citizens said, look, we keep getting robbed. We keep getting robbed on payday. They taking our money for real. Okay, police said nah. Okay, Black Panther Party said, let's do something. Boom. The Black Panther Party said, boom, let's do something. But first, let's see if this is actually a problem. So they set up the study, tracking the data. Then, after they got the data, they used the data to be like, wow, is senior citizens out here getting robbed every payday? Now that we know this, what can we do for this? So they said, how about we get the people in our community, the young people in our community who are unemployed, who may not have a lot going on, to come help these senior citizens. So what did they do? They're using the data to address the problem. And then by using these young people, they're finding solutions to prevent the problem, because the young people were the ones that was robbing the senior citizens. So I see this from two ways. One, if you're always helping the senior citizens and you're their escort, you're not going to want to rob them because you have personal connections with them. But then two, like they were saying, if I'm getting paid for helping these senior citizens out, I'm less likely to snatch their money or try to rob them because I'm getting money. I don't need to rob somebody for money. So there's several ways you could think about that, but I think this was a very, very good program that they had. The next program we're going to talk about is the People's Free Medical Research Health Clinics. So this opened in 1972, and it offered free medical treatment and preventative care, helping to alleviate that mistrust between Black people and doctors, because you know, Black people be scared about the doctors. We don't know if they experimenting on us to ski syphilis, if they're going to be using our DNA to do other things. Henrietta Lacks. Let me not get too deep. But the clinics were actually staffed by volunteer doctors who provided their services for free. Now, this is my capitalistic mind, maybe I'm just, born in a capitalist society. I was just wondering, well, if the doctors were working for free, how did they make a living, And I know this is all about social programs, and I believe they were like a socialist party, but don't quote me on that. I don't know. So I'm just trying to think, like, if I'm a doctor, I went through all of this schooling, and now I'm helping people for free. Not to say doctors shouldn't help people, but I still gotta live, I still gotta pay bills. So I just wondered how that worked out. And like I said, that just made me thinking from a capitalist mind. And I'm going to read this quote to you that showed that these programs were opening people's eyes. Okay, hear me out. So, through the operation of the program, the community begins to see that it is possible to receive professional, competent, and above all, preventative medical help without paying for it. The people also come to understand that as taxpayers, they do not have to stand for the lackadaisical treatment given to them by county hospitals and other health facilities. It's time for me to reflect. Like when I was just talking about the capitalism thing, when we were talking about the SAFE program, reading this book is really allowing me to reflect on what my values are and how I feel about things, and really just checking my not cognitive dissonance, but my cognitive biases, and understanding that I see the world through a different lens and trying to just be open-minded. But the next program we're going to talk about is the Sickle Cell Anemia Research Foundation. Okay, so this was established in 1971, and it focused on researching a cure for sickle cell anemia. It was one of the first initiatives to raise awareness for this disease. Other researchers were not really focusing on it, primarily because it affected mostly Black people, so they weren't really doing research on it. But the foundation, they educated the community about the disease, and in turn empowered them to seek out and advocate for solutions. So they were giving them information, they would get them some help if they did have the disease, just different things.